Okay, so the Rebbe essentially, this is Sikha, not so much on Tetzaveh, it's more going to be about Zayin Adar, the Yahrtzeit of Moshe Rabbeinu, and also the birthday of Moshe Rabbeinu, which is really going to be the theme of the Sikha, which is like more powerful, the birthday or the Yahrtzeit, and the Rebbe is going to connect it with Parshas Ata Tetzaveh, that Tetzaveh on the one hand is famously the only Parsha that doesn't have Moshe Rabbeinu's name in it since he was born, and on the other hand, it's first person Moshe Rabbeinu, it's beyond the name. It's Tetzaveh, Ata Tetzaveh, you will command. The whole Parsha has to do with you will command, that's the name of the Parsha, so it has to do with the whole Parsha. So on the one hand, it's very powerful about Moshe Rabbeinu, on the other hand, it's concealing about Moshe Rabbeinu. Essentially, the Rebbe is going to explain these are the two aspects of Zayin Adar: his concealment, his passing, and the idea of him being born, his coming into the world, and so on. And the Rebbe essentially is going to explain, more so even than explaining Zayin Adar or Parshat Tetzaveh, he's going to explain the whole idea of why the month of Adar is a month of Simcha. In a way, it's connected in a very general way to what we learned last week, but it's going to be taking more of a different approach based on Zayin Adar, based on what Moshe Rabbeinu was about, and so on. Okay, let's begin. Yom Zayin Adar, Yom Petiras Moshe Rabbeinu, Chal Beroi Vashonim, Besmichas L'Parshat Tetzaveh. Today tonight is Yud Adar, but it's still within 3 days. It's brought down Shulchan Aruch when something is within 3 days, it's still considered a continuation of it. V'yistu b'sforim, sheyesh remez l'zeh b'Parshas Tetzaveh, she'ha Parsha Yechida b'Torah, Misha Noilad Moshe, which is a Parsha Shmois, l'achrei Parsha Shmois, she'ein muskar b'Shmois shel Moshe, u'b'zeh merumezes histalkusi shel Moshe b'Zayin Adar. Moshe's passing is hinted by the fact that he's not named. V'areze masim gam mashkosu v'mogen Avram shebeshana muberes ki beshana zu hatain is the Zayin Adar hi ba'adarish. There's a minig brought down in Shulchan Aruch, and we're going to speak about that later towards the end of the Sikha, that people would fast on Zayin Adar because it's the day of the Yahrtzeit of Moshe Rabbeinu. So the question is, like in many things, when there's a Shana Muberes, which is the Adar that you celebrated in? Do you celebrate in the first or the second? So when it comes to the fast of Zayin Adar, where it comes about Moshe Rabbeinu's Yahrtzeit, that is done on the first Adar. Why? So it's because Zayin Adar Rishon Dafka with Smichsel Parshat Tetzaveh. The second Adar would not come out close to Parshat Tetzaveh. So we know that it's even more, even in Halacha, we see this connection with the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu's name is not mentioned in Ata Tetzaveh with the Yahrtzeit. So that's why, in a way, it comes out in the first Adar is when we mark the Yahrtzeit of Moshe Rabbeinu. V'tzarech lahavin, we need to understand Zayin Adar hu gam yom leidas Moshe. Uk'teis b'gemara HaKadosh Baruch Hu yoshev v'malish nesem shel tzadikim miyom l'yom l'chodesh l'chodesh. And as we'll mention later on, and he says also over here in the footnote, that because of that, we have to say that Moshe Rabbeinu's birthday is also celebrated and marked in Adar Rishon, or else then it would be off. Then it wouldn't be miyom l'yom. It wouldn't be mathematically working out that it would be the exact year's time, or whatever, 120 years. So the question is, Parshat Tetzaveh, I already started mentioning before what the answer to this is, but essentially, from what we said at the beginning, all we have is a mention of Moshe Rabbeinu's Yahrtzeit in Parshat Tetzaveh. By his name not being there, that's hinting to his Yahrtzeit. Why is there no hinting of his birthday? The Pashtas after Loimar shegam leidus Moshe merumezes beParsha bezeh sheshmahu ve'ata Tetzaveh. What I mentioned before this year, the Ata koi al Moshe Rabbeinu u'mi'achar sheshem haParsha meramez al toichin kol haParsha. Like the Rebbe often brings down, that the name of the Parsha is not just Stam, the first words of the Parsha, but like the Alter Rebbe says in Sharich V'Amunah, the name of something is the chayis for that thing. So just like a person's name or even an object's name gets its chayis from Lashon HaKodesh from that name. So the name of the Parsha has in it all the inyanim of the Parsha. That means the entire Parsha is about Ata, you, Moshe Rabbeinu. The idea of Moshe, which was brought about through his birth. It's not called Ata Tetzaveh, we say it's Parsha Tetzaveh. What we say in English, singular first person. Tetzaveh. Who is the Tetzaveh going on? You, Moshe Rabbeinu. So even without the word Va'ata, we're talking about Moshe Rabbeinu. Behemshech l'vaydaber Hashem al Moshe leimer. It says right before, Vaydaber Hashem. To who? To Moshe. And he tells him, Tetzaveh, you should command. So again, we're talking about Moshe Rabbeinu. Shabbat Chol Sa'inyan at the beginning of the topic. K'muven gam mashanemar teikav la'achar Tetzaveh, Aaron achicha. Again, it says Aaron, your brother. So that again proves that the Tetzaveh is talking about Moshe Rabbeinu. If it would be using a more plural language, so then it's talking about Klal Yisrael. But it says Tetzaveh, singular, second person, directly to Moshe Rabbeinu. So that is the general look that the Rebbe is approaching this parsha with. That Taka in this parsha you have both inyanim, both the Yahrtzeit of Moshe Rabbeinu and his birth, his very existence. But how do they really fit together? They're seemingly contradictory. It's missing. It's gone. So how do the two things fit together? The lechora tzarich lahavin lama kavu liyam tainis bilvad mitzad misas Moshe b'shah shemetzinu shaklavatari b'gemara b'inyan misha amar ke Moshe b'shiva ba'adar. The Gemara talks about different types of expressions of nedarim. That a person takes on a neder and he says, I should be like Moshe on the 7th of Adar. What does that mean? What does that expression mean? So he says, so the Gemara has a whole question what that means. Because there's two things happened by Moshe on the 7th of Adar. He was born and he passed away. I have a Kabbalah's Naziris, umevur bezabatoisus as follows. The biyayim hivoldoy dain bezayin Adar samchu simcha gedoyla. So therefore, it's not taking upon himself Nazirus because it's a time of joy, it's a time of happiness. It's not an Indian that the person is going to become a Nazir because of it. He's going to become sad or whatever. Rabim nadru beneder v'rabu nazirim b'Yisrael machmas tzar. When Moshe Rabbeinu passed away, they made nedarim and vows, and they became nazirim. So when he says, "I'm going to be like Moshe on the 7th of Adar," he doesn't know. The Gemara is trying to figure out which did the person mean. V'hu amar b'stam, aha, I'm going to be. So which is it? Hainu k'moishai b'doirish al Moshe b'zayin ba'adar b'yoyim Moshe, and therefore if a Naziris Kabbalah lied, did he accept upon himself to be a Nazir? Oy kiyam ivoldoi kamar v'simcha Kabbalah lied, did he take upon himself to be joyous? So therefore we see that even in halacha there is a possibility. And it's explained that the day of the birthday of Moshe Rabbeinu was a joyous time. So therefore, why do we find in Shulchan Aruch only applies it in one way? So then the Rebbe says in the brackets that perhaps we could say that this is just something having to do with what was going on then, not now.
What's the connection to Tainus?
Huh?
What's the connection to Tainus and Zion?
There's a halacha in Shulchan Aruch that's brought down that there are those that fast on Zion Adar. And that's the Rebbe is asking. It's only brought down about fasting of Zayin Adar because of the passing of Moshe Rabbeinu, nothing about because of his birth of Moshe Rabbeinu, we're going to have a Yom Simcha. So now the Rebbe is going to say, perhaps we're talking about then. Then they were happy, not now. So therefore, it has nothing to do with now. And now all we have is the Yahrtzeit. So therefore, there's a fast day that's brought down in Shulchan Aruch. So he says, "Ve'ein loy marsha safek b'gemarahu hayim kavanas ha'oimeri l'zayin adar kefishu la'achar Mrs. Moshe." When the person said, "I should be like Moshe on the 7th of Adar," so he meant what was going on with Zayin Adar after Moshe Rabbeinu passed away. Then the way he's saying that people would say, after Moshe Rabbeinu passed away, nobody celebrated Moshe Rabbeinu's birthday after he passed away. The only thing they marked was his Yahrtzeit, and therefore it's a time of Naziris. V'imkei Naziris kibal atzmai. Oy she'iskaven lezayin adar b'chaim Moshe ba'al medain. She'oz hoya ze yom simcha mitzad leidosei. Aval achshav l'chol ha'deis yom tainis. We are asking, why is it only brought down that it's a Yom Tainis? It's because it's after Moshe Rabbeinu passed away. The Gemara is not talking about that. The Gemara is talking about this person when he said, I should be like Moshe and Zayin Adar. So the two sides of the Gemara that's saying, should it be for him a joyous day? Did he mean to be a happy day? Or did he mean to be a day of Naziris? Was because the Gemara is saying about this person's mind. What was he thinking about? Was he thinking about Moshe Rabbeinu's celebration when he was born before he passed away, and therefore it's a joyous time? Or what Moshe Rabbeinu's day on Zayin Adar is after he passed away, which is a sad time, and a time to be Mekabel Neder and Naziris and so on. So therefore this means to say that once Zayin Adar took place in the year 2488, after Moshe Rabbeinu passed away, so it's for sure a sad day. It's not that there's both things now. The Rebbe is trying to ask, it should be both things. Why does Shulchan Aruch only bring one? Says, no, the Gemara is talking over there about before he passed away it was a joyous time. But now it's not a joyous time anymore. So the Rebbe says you can't learn that way. Pshat, Shari ibn Adorim, Halach achar loshem b'nei Adam. Ubal b'nei Adam bevadei kavanas ha'omer zayin Adar zman rav la'achrei Mrs. Moshe hi l'toichen yom zeh ke Moshe b'zman ha'amira la'achar misasei. There's a rule. Whenever it comes to the halachas of Nedarim, it has to do halach achar loshem b'nei Adam. You have to follow the language of people. Because the point of Nedarim goes by what goes on in the person's mind. That's why part of Hataras Nedarim is that the Chacham tells the person, if you would have known that such and such, would you have still made the neder? In other words, the entire neder is based on what the person thinks. But we have to determine what the person thinks by the language that he used. He can't afterwards tell you always that this is what he meant, if normally people mean something else when they say that. So, let's look at this person. This person is living, we're in the time of the Gemara. So let's say he's living in the time of the Gemara. And he's saying, I am like Moshe Rabbeinu on 7th of Adar. Loshem b'nei Adam. Would he be talking about the 7th of Adar from when it was like thousands of years ago when Moshe Rabbeinu was still alive? No. He's talking about the Pashtas, what's going on now in the 7th of Adar. And still in all, the Gemara has a suffix. Did he mean it to be a sad day for him, or did he mean it to be a happy day for him? So therefore, v'afal pikein yesh svara shekavanase l'yom simcha. So therefore, we see that even after Moshe Rabbeinu passed away, even now there are both sides. If there's both sides, why does Shulchan Aruch only bring one possibility, a fast day? V'yisayim azu yisa b'gemara b'megillah kiven shenafel pur b'chaydish Adar samach Simcha Gedoyla. It was Haman that was very joyous. Very interesting. The month of Adar is a happy month. So even for Haman it was a happy month. That's just an interesting thing. It says Samach Simcha. Not just Samach. It says Samach Simcha Gedoyla. He was very happy. Amar Nafali Pur B'Yerach Shemeis by Moshe V'Lo Yedea Shebeshiva Ba'Adar Meis U'Beshiva Ba'Adar Noilad. Umedivra Gemara Mashma Shebeshiva Ba'Adar Noilad Gavar al b'shiva b'adar meis. In other words, like this: since Haman only knew about Moshe Rabbeinu's Yahrtzeit as the 7th of Adar, that's why he thought it was a good time, a terrible time for the Eden, a good time for him to be able to fulfill his schemes against the Eden. But what comes out from the Gemara is that because he didn't know the other thing, he didn't know that Moshe Rabbeinu was born then, so now, instead of Zayin Adar being a bad thing, it's a good thing, because the birthday of Moshe Rabbeinu is so powerful to overcome anything negative associated with a Yahrtzeit. So we see how powerful the birthday of Moshe Rabbeinu was. Who goyrem leyom simcha bechol azmanim, because it was even then, the days of Haman, many years later. Not just in the times of Moshe Rabbeinu it was a happy time, but it was a happy time even in the times of Haman, that it could turn over the Gzeira of Haman. Ubefrat al pi pirish Rashi sham, that Rashi explains pshat in the Gemara, and Rashi says, what is the thing that we're saying? He didn't realize that Moshe Rabbeinu was born on that day. But kedayu yom haleida sheyechaper ala misa. So any negative thing that's associated with Zayin Adar, because the day of passing of Moshe Rabbeinu, was taken away because it's the birthday. Shemezeh mashma she'adra bezel yom simcha bolvad. Bichaper, the Rebbe says in other places, we see this lashon also in Tanya. He says kapara meloshin kinuach, wiping something away. In other words, the Yom Haleida is so powerful to wipe away anything negative having to do with the Yahrtzeit. So therefore, it's only a Yom Simcha. So the question becomes even more difficult. If you have the Yahrtzeit, you're saying the Yahrtzeit is a negative thing, and you're saying the birthday is a positive thing. So initially the Rebbe asked, okay, you have a negative, you have a positive. Why do you choose only the negative? But according to the Gemara, it's even worse. According to the Gemara, it comes out that the positive of the birthday wiped away and changed anything negative having to do with the Yahrtzeit. So here in Shulchan Aruch, what does it tell us? Only about the negative? Only about fasting on Zayin Adar? Nothing is done even to commemorate the positive? Dalet. Yuvim behegdim divrei Gemara kishem shemishin nichnas av memaytim besimcha kach mishin nichnas adar marbim besimcha. So the question is, Pashat, in this halacha, the statement of the Gemara, v'yesh levarer ha'im b'shana mu'beres inyan marba besimcha gamba adar rishon ayrak ba'adar sheni. Which adar is this? And as of course you will see that the Rebbe is going to say that we're talking about, it starts from the first adar. Rashi says on these words, Mishenichnas Adar, Marben Besimcha, so on the words Mishenichnas Adar, Rashi says a very interesting thing. And the Rebbe has a few questions on this Rashi. Yemei nisim hayu li Yisrael Purim uPesach. This Rashi needs explanation. But first, he's just going to bring it as a proof, perhaps, to say that only Adar Sheni is the one that we say Mishnichnas Adar Marben Besimcha. Shezeh Rak B'Adar Sheni. When could you say that there's a connection between Purim and Pesach? You have it in the second Adar, not in the first Adar. And that's Taka the reason why. It says why Taka that the Chazal decide to make Purim in the second Adar? Because Mismach Gula L'Gula, because they wanted you to go straight from the Gula of Purim into the Gula of Pesach. So why? So from that Rashi, you can learn out that first Adar doesn't have the idea of Mishnichnas Adar Marben Besimcha. So the Rebbe says, "Avayesh loymer shemepirish Rashi zeh ein raya, va'adrabe yesh ledayik lahepach davke." Just the opposite, that it's really from the first Adar. And how are we going to be medayik this? So first, the Rebbe has questions on Rashi. Ubehegdem hashayla yedua lesafas Rashi kan uPesach. Pesach, my boy, Hacham. Where's Pesach coming over here? We're talking about Adar. We want to know why you have to be happy when Adar enters. So you're telling me because Yemei Nisim Hayu, Purim and Pesach. Yesh mefarshim shekavonas Rashi letaretz bezeh mepnei ma marbim besimcha. Rak bechodesh Adar mitzad hanes haPurim. V'loy bechodesh Nisim mitzad Nisim haPesach. Why shouldn't we say Mishenichnas Nisim marbim besimcha? Because you have, of course, the miracles of Pesach. If you have the miracles of Pesach, you should be Nichnas Nisim also. Valzem, Hoisif u Pesach. For this, Rashi adds the word of Pesach. That's what some Mefarshim want to say, that really, just like in Adar, Mishanichnas Adar Marben Besimcha, the same thing, Mishanichnas Nissen, Marben Besimcha. That's why Rashi puts together the words Nissen and Pesach. Top of 345. This is a doichik. You're really squeezing it into the words of Rashi. He wants to say a new chiddush. The Gemara only said Mishnichnas Adar Marben Besimcha. Comes Rashi wants to tell you, guess what? Nisan also you should be Marben Besimcha. So he's just going to slip it in under the radar. Pesach, So he says, Ubefrat hanegel lamaisa. He wants to tell you what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be Marben Besimcha Nisan. Shagam Nisan Sarkli is Marben Besimcha. Havalei Leimar came bebirur. Clearly, openly, he should have said it. Because he says Purim and Pesach, so you'll know. It has to be Mishnichnas Nissen also Marben Besimcha. Also, if you're going to go by that reasoning, that since it's Nissim, so then you're going to have to go other months as well, not just Adar, not just Nissen. How about Kislev? Tzarich laharbes besimcha gam b'chodesh Kislev mitzad nes Chanukah v'adra b'kivim shechanukah ein elam adrabana v'divrei seifrim tzrichim chizuk. So we know the Chachamim will make certain things stronger by the Rabbanon things than even by the Deraisa, because you need to give them extra strength. Hayetzarich laharbes besimcha joyous rebenissen sharei pesach medivrei Torah ve'ein tzrichim chizuk v'afilu joyous ba'adar. Why? Divrei Kabbalah means things that are brought down in Nach. Things that are brought down in Nach are not considered min ha-Torah, but they're not considered totally midrabanan, even though Purim is one of the Sheva mitzvahs to Rabbanan, but it's still closer because it's part of the Chavdal Sifrei Kodesh. So therefore, if that's how you can explain Pshat and Rashi, so then you're still going to have a problem. Why don't you have Marben Besimcha? Because the miracles that took place in Kislev. So the Rebbe says that way we can't learn Pshat. You can't learn that the reason why Rashi says Mishnichnas Adar Marben is because of Purim, how you may Nissen, because in Purim and Pesach he's trying to tell you that also Nissen you have to be Marben. So others have a different explanation. Acherim Mefarshim shekavonas divrei Rashi Purim and Pesach Hishma'achar shebechodesh Adar hischilu yemei Nisim ritzufim v'tkufim zelazeh lachein davke mishnichnas Adar marben besimcha ma she'enkim bekislev shlo yhoye by Nisim ritzufim v'tkufim zelazeh. What the Rashi is saying is, in a way, really answering our previous question. There are other months in the year that have Nisim. But we don't say when those months come in, whether Kislev or Nissen, Marben. Why Dafka and Adar? Adar is something special. Right after the Geula of Purim, we're coming to the Geula of Pesach. So it's one after the other. Because it's one after the other, that's so many Nissim, that's why Mishnichnas Adar Marben Besimcha. So the Rebbe says, Aval Gamzeh Tzarech Bir, Maya Shayches, Hainu Asmiches Betoichen, Ben Pesach L'chodesh Adar, You're going to go ahead and add enjoy right away at the beginning of the month of Adar, because later on, down the road, you're going to have Purim, which will lead to Pesach. There's something missing in the words of Rashi. So the Rebbe's approach, it's going to take a while till he gets there, is going to be, I just want to give you an idea of where we're going towards, that Moshe Rabbeinu's Yom Huledes, Zayin Adar, which was the reason that turned over Adar into a month of Simcha, is what's behind Pesach. It was the date that Noilad Mashiach Shal Yisrael. So the Zayin Adar, the same thing that caused the date of Purim to be a joyous date instead of Chas v'Shalom, a terrible time, is the same thing that was the reason why there was Pesach. Parsha v'poil. Moshe Rabbeinu was born. Noilad Mashiach Shal Yisrael. And that's what the common thread is, the connection between Purim and Pesach. Moshe Rabbeinu, and not just Moshe Rabbeinu, but Moshe Rabbeinu's birth on Zayin Adar. So it's the month of Adar that you're marben and Simcha, not the month of Nisan. The month of Adar you're marben b'Simcha because you have a date that's so powerful. It changed over the whole problem in Adar, and it also begashmis caused the situation that took place with Pesach later on. Let's see it inside. It's going to take a while till we get there. V'abir bezem loshna gemarihi mishenichnas Adar marben b'Simcha. Hainu shemiyad ma'ascholos hachodesh marben b'Simcha. And therefore there's a halacha v'hilkoch by Yisrael, the Yislay din about in Nachri, if he has a court case, like we spoke about I think last week also. Lishtamet b'nei be'av, he should avoid a guy in Av. V'limtzin nafshei be'adin, should make himself available for the court case in Adar. Stam, anytime in Adar. Gam b'tchilas hachodesh. The bari mazle, because the mazel is very strong, like we spoke about last week also. The L'chura, top of page 346, Kivan, Shan Nes Hoyab Yud Gimel Adar, La matzricha simcha liyas kvar mas cholos Adar. Well, what's your question? You're saying it's a wonderful day. Start being marben b'simcha. Go ahead, lahalacha. Go ahead. If you have a court case, that's when you should do it. The miracle took place 13 days later. Almost a half a month later, the miracle took place. It was in the 23rd of Sivan. The story that he sent out, the letters, was way before Adar. Because So the Rebbe says, if you're going to go that far back, so don't start with Adar. Start with Sivan. You imagine you're going to start already, Mishanichna Sivan, Mar B'Simcha, you're going to be one long binge through Purim, whatever. Which is in Sivan. That's why, since there was no action of the self-defense yet, so no one celebrated Sivan, or Tammuz, or Elul, or Shvat. They had to go to war on Yud Gimel. If you don't care about the past, all you care about when they actually defended themselves. Because, again, why there? Why at that point? Why at the beginning of the month? Very balabatsha question. Without even learning the Gemara, it's hard. Especially if a person never learned the whole Gemara that says, and the Mepharshim to bring it out on the Megillah, that Haman made the poor for which month and so on. What's the Megillah saying? Does it say in Nisan anywhere that it was in Chumash that it was the month that was Nepach Lahem? No. On the Tetzaveh of Nisan, they went out of Mitzrayim. There was no Chodesh that was Nepach Lahem. All of a sudden, it comes to the Megillah. Chodesh asher Nepach Lahem miyagel l'simcha. Hainu sha'chodesh kulei Nepach l'simcha shemetam ze isa b'Yerushalmi shemi she'eini yachol lahamtin likres ha'Megillah b'Yudalad koydem etchilas ha'chodesh. So even though we're all familiar with the first Mishnah Megillah that speaks over there about you could start reading the Megillah from the 11th, the 12th, the 13th, the 14th of the month, still in all, the Yerushalmi says you can go as far back as the beginning of Adar. After Tetzaveh you can't read because of, it says Lo Yosef, Lo Yavrim Ezarim. But the beginning of the Chodesh, you could start reading. No, you read without a bracha. Kol hachodesh kosher l'kriyas ha'Megillah. V'ramah kosel of hachinog. The interesting thing is, it's not just the Yerushalmi. A lot of times there's things brought down the Yerushalmi that doesn't say in the Bavli, and we say halacha ke Bavli, and that's it. But here, the Ramah brings down v'hachinog. By the way, I was looking up this in halacha. I think there may be deists that hold that you could make it with a bracha. I don't remember for sure, but I think that
Yudav talks about that reading earlier than Yudav.
right. It talks all the way to Yud Aleph.
Yudav.
Yud Aleph. So that's the Pella of the Yerushalmi.
No?
I think not. Again, I know that there's a discussion back and forth. The Mefarshim talk about it, the Noise Kalim and Shulchan Aruch talk about it, but I think the commonly accepted halacha is that you don't say it with a bracha. I believe so. And again, the question is, why? So why should you be allowed to read all the way from the beginning of the month? And the Rebbe says, "V'kush yazu miyesheves b'lashon Rashi yemei nisim ha'yel Yisrael Purim HaPesach." How? Come on. Hasbarim ezeh memaimer hagemara kishem shemish nichnas av memaitem b'simcha kach mish nichnas adam mar b'simcha, like we learned last week. Muvan shemarbim b'simcha d'chodesh Adar umemaitem b'simcha d'chodesh av geder echad lahem. The Gemara says, just like. It's not two separate halachas. In other words, if you want to know what way and how it works, the Marbim B'Simcha of Adar, you could learn it out from how the Amaytim B'Simcha is enough. V'hinei b'achiluk shbein chodesh av l'shar chadashim shehoye b'hem mu'rois built to the tzuyim shedavke b'chodesh av amru Amaytim B'Simcha. For example, it's Shavas B'Tammuz. There was bad things happened then also, but we don't say Meshunichnas Tammuz Mematim B'Simcha. Dafke in the month of Av. Matzinu Shnei Inyanim is brought down. Aleph, Huchpulu by Tzaras. There was a lot of Tzaras that took place in the month of Av. Beis, another reason is Zehu Yoim Chayev. Kedisa B'Gemara, Shatam Shechurban Abayis B'Shniya, the second time when there was the Churban Beis HaMikdash. Af Hu Hoye B'Tes B'Av. Meaning, the date itself already started out as a negative date, so you move over whatever you can into that negative day. So therefore, the Churban, the second Beis HaMikdash, took place in the same negative day as the first, and even the first was already a negative day, like he mentions in a moment, because of the Chet HaMeraglim. That the Tisha B'Av is called a Yom Chayav, but it goes back even earlier. What were they when they were crying when they heard the reports back from the Meraglim? So it's brought down. The Gemara says, Rashi also I think brings it down. Tisha B'Av Haya Amlam HaKadosh Baruch Hu Atem B'Chisam B'Chia Shel Chinam V'Ani Kaveh Lachem B'Chia L'Doires. So, in other words, that's when it became a Yom Chayav. And then it became like a magnet for all bad things come out now in this Yom Chayav. So therefore, now we see two ways of looking at the problems with Tisha B'Av, with the month of Av, as a month. Based on this, we'll understand the positive things of Adar as the month of Adar. One thing is that there was many nisim in it, and includes also a very good day. So he says on the top, next page, 347, Adar. Hareza b'divrei hagemara hanal shebegillah. Kivin shenafal por b'chodesh Adar. So Haman became very happy. Samach simcha g'dayla. Amar nafali por b'yerach shemeis by Moshe. V'loy ha'yedeya shebeshiva ba'adar meis or beshiva ba'adar noilad. So it's very interesting again. Going back to the month, Haman himself looked at the month as a bad month, not at the date that was a bad date. He looked at the entire month as a bad month. Harei shasiba she'evil and aspurim b'chodesh Adar hi yom zayin Adar. Hainu she'etzem nefilas hapur b'chodesh Adar hi she'bitlas gzeres Haman al chodesh zeh uketetzah mezeh ir b'chodesh zeh nespur. He thought that the month was bad. Comes the date of Zayin Adar, which was also the birthday of Moshe Rabbeinu, which he didn't realize, and makes the month a good month. So he says, so what is it about Zayin Adar? In Yoneh HaMiyuchad Shel Zayin Adar Hu Sheboi Noilad Mashiach Shel Yisrael Shahoitzi Yisrael Megolos Mitzrayim. And this is what we started mentioning before. V'nimtza shebechodesh Adar yeshnam by Beis Yom Manal. Zel chodesh yesh by Yom Zakei Zayin Adar. Just like we said about Av, it has a terrible day. It has Tisha B'Av. The date is a bad day. The month of Adar has a good day. Birthday of Moshe Rabbeinu. V'huchpeloi anisim v'hageulos. Why were there huchpeloi? What were the many things? Ki yom zayin adar hu amakar v'asiba l'shtei hageulos, like I mentioned before. Hayeshua v'hageula Mitzrayim v'geulas Purim. So both things are a result of Zayin Adar, of Moshe Rabbeinu being born. Physically, they went out of Mitzrayim because Noilad Mashiach Yisrael. And because it was now a Yom Zakai, it was the birthday of Moshe Rabbeinu, so that's why the entire month now became a good month. Over Purim, the question that we asked before. That's the way you learn the Pashtas. Why are you marbim b'simcha? Because it has a very happy day. What's the very happy day? Purim, Yudal Adar, it's Yom Mishta v'Simcha. So therefore, it's such a powerful day. The whole month becomes a day of Simcha. So he says, no, it's not that, or not only that. The month itself caused that it should be in Mein Nisim. Why? Because the month that Moshe Rabbeinu was born in, Dainu Gam Pesach, V'Kanal Shishus Yisrael Pesach, Leidasa Haschalasa V'Sibasa B'Zayin Adar. It began with Zayin Adar. V'Lechein Teikif Mishenichnas Adar Marbim B'Simcha, because it's the month that was changed by Zayin Adar. One of the questions we asked before: why is it the month? V'Chol HaChodesh Kasher L'Kriyas HaMegillah. It didn't start then. Haman's goyrel was messed up from the first minute. Because, as the Mefarshim speak about, he made a goyrel for the month, and then he made a girdle for the day. Actually, there's an opinion that says he didn't make a girdle for the day, he just made a girdle for the month. And he already messed up right away with the month. He thought it was a bad month, and instead it was a good month. So the entire month now became a positive month, all thanks to Zayin Adar. 248. So now, we're going to get back to what we started speaking about, why Tainus and not a day of joy. So it's even more difficult. Why is it no days of joy associated with Zayin Adar? So the Rebbe is going to go and analyze and break down what is the idea of Taka fasting. And why do you fast for a Yahrtzeit? Why would there be a concept like that? By the way, there's also halach in Shulchan Aruch that people fast not just on the Yahrtzeit Moshe Rabbeinu, the people that fast on the Yahrtzeit of a parent. The Rebbe used to make siyumim on the Yahrtzeit. One of the ideas of making a siyum is like making a siyum on Erev Pesach, that it allows you to eat. Exactly, you don't have to fast. Al Kolpon, v'hinei hatam li me'atainis, shenimnu b'shulchan aruch, elu hayomim she'iru b'hem, tzadis laveseinu lisanis b'hem, like it goes through the different days that the Chachamim said we're supposed to fast. V'zayin Adar b'soicham is one of the days that people used to fast. Yesh levari b'shnei afan. Aleph, one way how you can explain fast days. Me'achar she'elu hayomim she'iru b'hem tzadis laveseinu. Hem yomim shel hepech hasimcha. Yomim chayavim, like we said before, megalgalim chayiv liyom chayav. Alkein roy lisanis behem. Why? This day is a dangerous time. Like similar, you say that in the 9 days, there are certain things you shouldn't do during the 9 days, certain dangerous things you don't do during the 9 days because it's a dangerous time. The same thing on a day that the Chazal says a Yom Chayav. Like, for example, what the different days that happened tzaras to Yidden, so it's a dangerous day. To protect ourselves from that danger, royally sansbem. Alkein royally sansbem. Kedei linotzel minyanim bilti ritzuyim shlo yavoyu. And the Rebbe says, what do you mean a dangerous day? I have to be worried about a dangerous day? That sounds like, superstition. You're worried about mazel, that the mazel is off. He says, ki afal pishein mazel Yisrael. So we're not under the calendar times. We don't have to be worried about dates on the calendar. So he says, Rashi explains, what does it mean, Ein Mazel Yisrael? It doesn't mean that the dates, let's say on the calendar, have no effect on us. It could have an effect. But through davening and through schusim, we could change that. That's what it means, Ein Mazel Yisrael. Therefore, it fits even better. That's why on certain bad dates on the calendar, we're supposed to fast. Why? Because that will undo anything negative. Or prevent anything negative. That's one explanation of why we fast on times when things occur that were negative. In other words, it's not really a negative thing. The fast is not about negative or concerned or you're worried that something bad is going to happen. But fast is one of the ways how we're ba'ir ourselves to tshuva. A time of a Yahrtzeit, a time when a tzaddik was nostalgic, or b'chlal, a time when things that didn't happen that were so good, is a time when we're supposed to be ba'ir ourselves to tshuva. One of the tools, one of the ways that helps us focus less on our bodily person and less on our physicality and more on our ruchnius and on tshuva is to fast. So these are two ways of looking about why fast days were established on certain bad days on the calendar, a Yahrtzeit, let's say Moshe Rabbeinu, and so on. And depending on that, there'll be two ways, depending on which one of these ways we approach, there'll be two ways of looking about the Yahrtzeit and the birthday of Moshe Rabbeinu coming out on the same day. If you have a date on the calendar, like Zayin Adar, that has positive and negative, has Hein Simcha ve'Ein Heipcha Simcha. So you're worried about some bad date on the calendar, something bad could chas v'sholom happen. So you see, it's not limited, it's not necessarily a bad date. You don't have to be worried about the date. So it happened, but it's not that the day is something you have to be worried about. It's still a time when we need to. It doesn't make a difference that it's a day of Simcha. It's still a time we have to be in the Soyer and Tshuva. Like the Rebbe a lot of times says, it says, Shallah Amru, Mi Shallah Simcha Beis Sheva Leira Simcha Miyamav. And what are they saying over there? Sha'ayru Tshuva, Mi Shachata Yashav Yimchaloi, the famous Chabad Nigen. So you see, at the height of Simcha, you could still have the idea of tshuva. That has both things together, a day that has negative and a day that has Simcha. That's how powerful the Simcha of Zayin Adar is. Not just Purim, but it affects the entire Chodesh Akala. Chodesh Nasas Manshal Marm B'Simcha. Muvan Sha'atainis Dezayin Adar Mitam Shabai Meis Moshe Rabbeinu Einam Mipnei Shezah Yom Chayev. It has nothing to do with being a bad date on the calendar. You're not fasting because you're worried about something terrible happening. It's only for the second reason of a fast day, which is to be ma'ir min tshuva. U'mashe b'yom ze noilad, hare adrab, ze mesayeya sh'atshuva tiyah b'ofen naila v'toiv yoser. Mitoich simcha, K'tshem shetzarech l'kayim is kol mitzvah tech simcha, which the Rebbe always talks about. Tshuva and being always having tshuva being the highest of all mitzvahs has to be done even more out of simcha than any other mitzvah. Okay, divrei Rashi ben Gel and Neis Purim, kedai hu yom haleida sheyechaper ala misa. Hainu shegam yom hamisa mushpa mi yom haleida. Like we said before, the yom haleida is so powerful that it could like outweigh the Yom HaMisa, could take away any negative effect from the Yom HaMisa. So now, going back to what the Magen Avraham said about an Iber year, like this year, Al Pisa movim in Gel Shana Muberes, Ha Magen Avraham Kasav Shebeshana Muberes Taine Zayin Adar Be'adar Rishon, Umezem Muvon Gam Shegam in Asimcha Metzadi Yoyse Yom Zaken Neledes Moshe Hu Bezayin Adar Rishon. Kanal, like we said before, Shakadosh Baruch Hu Yoshev Malish Nesem Tzadikim Miyoim Liyoim. And the Rebbe says also in the footnote, it's also similar to the idea of Magdim Refuah Lamaka. So, but in other words, the Rebbe gives another point that you have when the Eibishter makes that the tzaddik should pass away on the very same day of his birthday, since the birthday is a positive thing, so therefore it will be there and available to get rid of anything negative that could be with the Yahrtzeit. The Nimtza comes out. This is one of the questions that Rebbe asked at the beginning. Is there an obligation to be marben b'simcha only in Adar Sheni? One might think Adar Sheni is when you actually celebrate Purim, and Purim is seemingly what we would have thought was the reason for the Simcha. But the Rebbe already established that the reason for the Simcha is because the Chodesh was Nepach, because of Zayin Adar. And we are marking Zayin Adar Rishon as the Yahrtzeit, so therefore we have to mark Zayin Adar Rishon as the Yom Haledes. So therefore it's understood that the Marben B'Simcha begins already in Adar Rishon. The Rebbe says, I think in the footnote, that maybe a little bit later, I don't remember, that oh, no, not in the footnotes. In a moment he's going to say, but still no, it's going to be greater in the second. Mitzad habira now the Rashi, lefisha chodesh zeh, koilol hayom zakeh, the zayin adar, shehevi mei nisim leYisrael, Purim HaPesach. So that took place on Zayin Adar Rishon. Ubefrat she'oisem mei nisim leYisrael, kayomim kvar b'chodesh Adar Rishon. So he says, Purim cotton, he's going to say, v'shushan Purim cotton, she'yoim nisav atzolahim. There's a Beis Yosef. The Beis Yosef talks about, on the Tur, he speaks about it, about the halachas of Purim cotton. Different halachas. What happens if a person said, Allah Nisim in Purim cotton instead of the regular Purim? Does he have to say Shemas Rav? There's different halachas about Purim cotton that you got to know. So over there it says, at the end of the Beis Yosef, in Sim Tafresh Tzadik Zayin, it says that you have to celebrate Purim cotton and Shushan Purim cotton because they are also Yoim Nes V'Atzolahim. What exactly that means? This must probably means because the hemshech of the whole Yom Tov of Purim has like this effect also on Adar Rishon. Afal pi, you can move an eins of madregas marm simcha sheba'adar sheba'y chag Purim mamish. So the simcha of Adar Rishon, as great as it is not as great as the simcha of Adar Sheni. She'az kayam oisim meinism Yisrael b'poel mamish. Ella shalachura al pi anal. We get back to the original question. So, we've given so many good and powerful reasons why Zayin Adar should be a happy day. It's not mentioned anywhere. It's not said anywhere. So, in a similar way, the Rebbe spoke a Sikha, the whole Arichas the Rebbe spoke about it. That what could be a happier time than in Elul when the king is in the Malchut Basada and where he's coming to greet us and he's showing us a smiling face. Why don't we find anywhere, not even the Mamorim of the Rabbeim, that El should be a Simcha month, that entire month of El should be a Simcha month. I'm not going to go now into the answer that the Rebbe gives. But in the same way we're here. Zayin Adar turned everything over. The whole reason why the month of Adar is a happy month is because of Zayin Adar. But it doesn't say anywhere about Zayin Adar having to be celebrated in a happy way. So he says, "V'yashloimar shehi al nesenes mi'achar she'inyan the yom zakai shel yom zeh hu inyan naila beyoser ein yachol leired begilui lamatam besimcha gluya elahu nishar behelamai upoil b'derech siba ba'ofen nivdol." He's going to give an example of this in halacha. But what the Rebbe is saying over here is an amazing concept. There are things that are so high that are beyond what they would be about. They are a cause for Simcha for the whole month. And not just a whole month, but they're also the cause of Simcha for Pesach. And for 2 months in Hashanah Mubarak. And yet, in itself, the core day, Zayin Adar itself, not the rest of the month of Adar, Zayin Adar is so beyond everything, it's not even possible to say about it a day of Simcha. So he gives an example in Halacha. Dugma l'davar b'Halacha. The difference in Yom Tov and Shabbos. Shabbos, we know, is much holier than Yom Tov. But where do we speak about Simcha? V'samachta b'chagecha. On Shabbos, there is no mitzvah of Simcha. The Rebbe sometimes brings psukim to show that on Shabbos there's also a need of Simcha, but with Parsha, Shabbos is not a time of Simcha, it's a time of Einig. Yom Tov is v'samachta b'chagecha. And there's actually halachos in Shulchan Aruch, things that a person is supposed to do specifically on Yom Tov because it's times of Simcha. It doesn't say to do those things for Shabbos. But Shabbos is a holier time. Shabbos is a higher time than Yom Tov. Let's see it inside. Yom Tov shurak mikra kodesh. It's not kodesh itself. Shabbos, he's going to say, is Shabbos kodesh. Yom Tov is only mikra, the drawing down, the calling of kodesh. And to such a degree is it less than the kedusha of Shabbos. Umavdilim ben kodesh aloi lekodesh to Shabbos. You make a havdalah when Shabbos goes into Yom Tov. You say havdalah. You say hamavdil ben kodesh lekodesh. Why? Because you're going down a level. When you go Yom Tov into Shabbos, you don't make hamavdil ben kodesh lekodesh because you're going up a level in kedusha. Hine boy yeshnoi mavdilim ben kodesh shaloi lekodesh leShabbos. Hine boy yeshnoi mitzvah min haTorah v'samachta b'chagecha on Yom Tov. Masha'enke b'Shabbos shekodesh, not just mikra kodesh. Ubahavdola mikudushas Yom Tov. It is so holy that you have to be separating it. You make in the Havdalah separation between the Kedusha of Yom Tov and the Kedusha of Shabbos. When you say the Nusach of Havdalah, you'll say Hamav ben Kodesh LaKodesh, and with all the other Havdalahs that he enumerates over there. So you see how powerful it is. So now the Rebbe is going to explain this a little bit more. Asbar bezet tuvan behegdim biring in zem shakodesh baruch hu yoshev mamalish nesem shel tzadikim meyom leYom the mesim beyom shenoldu. Why taki? What is the advantage of this? Shatam apnimi bezeh yeshloimar she'etzel tzadikim hashleimus vatachlus shel inyan haleda. What is the leda? Haina leidosam v'izgalusam. They came down, they were revealed. When do you see the goal? When do you see the purpose? When do you see the gain of their birth? They were born. So, you don't see anything when the person is born. Taka Moshe Rabbeinu is mala abayis kula oira. But Poil, he didn't accomplish anything. Retroactively, lemafreya, you see the maila of the Yom Haleida when the person passes away. He b'yoyim nistalkusam ki az mezgala talmidim miruach rabam ha'atzmius yoyser boyfen naila yoyser mashabeisen shmasei hoysem lebesh beguf. After they pass away, the Alter Rebbe says in Yahrtzeit Kodesh, then you have a greater connection that the Rebbe has with their talmidim because it's not limited by the physical body. Va'id meiraz ha'aron nailus mezul, even a higher level shines. That the Alter Rebbe says over there also that because the neshama of the tzaddik is going back to its place where it came from, to the place that it was chiseled out from, so now we are receiving not just from the way our Rebbe was down here, but from the way our Rebbe is now connected in a much higher level above. Va'arazu me'ir al kol talmidav shenasu oivdei Hashem. U'mechaneses belibam hiruri tshuva ma'asim tovim. The only thing is, when the Rebbe is down here beguf, when the tzaddik is down here beguf, we can physically communicate it. We can physically see, he could physically share with us these revelations. But after 120, al sha'araz hu yibehelem v'hester gadol k'mashemesh hamer licham metachs la'aretz k'dis b'tikunim al Moshe Rabbeinu al shalom she'achar p'tirasai mispashetes ha'arasi b'chol dara v'dara l'shishim ribu neshamas k'mashemesh hamer metachs la'aretz l'shishim ribu kechavim. So the same thing, it shines, but the sun is on the other side of the earth, and the kechavim are on the other side. So you don't really see. You see reflected light. Here, the way the Alter Rebbe and Tanya use the kechavim, like they're reflecting the light or bring the light of the sun. But you don't actually connect with the sun. The sun is on the other side of the globe when you're seeing the kechavim. So Mash'enken, this is all by the Istalkos. Mash'enken beis haleida harei ein gili matzadik. There's nothing going on. It's only potential. Therefore, Valpiza move Mashalem at Sin B'Shulchan Aruch. Sheyesh Lasses Simcha B'Zayin Adar Yom Aledes Moshe Rabbeinu Shekein Shleimus Hagilu V'Amshocha Sheyom Aledes Nasas B'Yom Ha'Istalkos. But so then let's make a Simcha B'Yom Ha'Istalkos. So the Rebbe says B'Yom Ha'Istalkos is a different problem. The Rebbe says this also in the first Maimer. In this first Maimer, Basel Legani Tavshin and Aleph, he says this concept as well. Not Legaba why we don't have a Simcha, but he says the following thing. True, there's a greater revelation when the tzaddik is mistalik, but it's similar to what he said before, the sun being on one side and the kechavim being somewhere else. It's distant. The Rebbe says that's why when a tzaddik is nostalgic, it's called histalkus, because it's showing that it's a big gilu, but it's in the way of removed. And that's why lepoyel we can't mark it as a simcha in that day of the Yahrtzeit. You remember the second reason for tainus as tshuva, not because it's a yom chayv. Lefiza muvan haremes v'ashayches shel inyoni zayin adar Parsha Tetzaveh, which we began the whole Sikha. Achen begaloi le'nichtav shmoi shel Moshe v'Parsha. Because we said it's his birthday, but a birthday there's no gili of the tzaddik yet. Kiv, and also the Yahrtzeit, what's revealed? A negative. Kiv and shinyoni shel zayin adar k'may shubah begilui hu inyan shel yom tainus histalkus. Aber leidach bepnimius mashe shmoi shel Moshe le'nichtav u'bnei ha'oras atzmiyusi shel Moshe she'lamayla m'shem v'gilui. It's the higher level of Moshe. It's the Moshe Rabbeinu's essence. That part that's not limited by the body, like the Alter Rebbe explains over there in Ageres HaKodesh. V'davar zabel dei bitu b'shem ha'parsha v'ata Tetzaveh. Ata, which is higher than names. Haloshem va'ata, the Rebbe speaks about it also in other sichos on Ata Tetzaveh. Moidal atzmius shelamayla m'shem v'toyar. Similar to what it says, Moidani lefanecha, that Moidani is not any of Hashem's names. It's beyond the idea of Tumah. You could say it be a daim Tameis, because lefanecha, it's Hashem's very essence. The same thing, va'ata Tetzaveh of Moshe Rabbeinu, is Moshe Rabbeinu's essence, that which is in the level of Roimus, that which is Nizgala only then. V'tetzaveh, ugam maloshin tzavsa v'chibur, haynu atzavsa v'achibur shabnei Yisrael hamitzuvim im atzmiyusei shel Moshe, and it doesn't just remain connected to the atzmiyus of Moshe, but through that hamikasheres as Yisrael im atzmiyus ein sof hamidaber alava atom. V'zeu ha'toichem primi shel zayin Adar shebiyoyim ze nasis tachlis hashleimus shel leidus Moshe v'yizgalusei l'chol b'nei Yisrael l'mayla m'shem v'gilui. So really, we have both things, and even the more powerful thing of Zayin Adar, the higher level and the greater level of the Gili of Moshe, which is a result also of his birth on Zayin Adar, is connected with Va'ata Tetzaveh, that his name is not even in the Parsha.